I'd like to call the meeting to order for the Nisswa Planning Commission Board of Adjustment for Tuesday, April 5th, 2022 at 5 p.m. Roll call, please.
Gary Harris.
Josh Young.
Oh,
Just your name.
Dave Reese.
Bethany Soderlin.
All right, we'll now proceed to on-site visits.
actually what keeps me distracted from all those worries.
Marechka happens to be one of Ukraine's top news anchors.
So I think our biggest weapon now as journalists is just to tell the truth, to show what is going on.
She and her colleagues from other channels across Ukraine have banded together for a unified newscast from undisclosed locations airing for
All right, I would like to reconvene and call the meeting to order for the Nisswa Planning Commission Board of Adjustment for Tuesday, April 5th, 2022, 6 p.m. Roll call, please.
Gary Harris.
Josh Young.
Kristen Hansen,
Dave Reese.
Maggie Wentler, Bethany Soderland.
Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Are we gonna include the change, the table? Are we gonna bring that up when the table request for?
There was a request to include all of the tables from our ordinance concerning item number 00522, Roy Landing. And we did go ahead and change the tables for that.
Okay. I entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Next is to approve the meeting minutes for March 1st, 2022. Are there any corrections or additions to those minutes? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Next item is an open forum. Is there anyone present tonight that would like to speak towards something not on the agenda this evening? Not on the agenda this evening. Okay, hearing none, I'll close public comments. And moving on to public hearings, I'll entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. All right, first item is an interim use permit application 003-22 to allow for the replacement of the existing gateway accessory structure with a proposed gateway accessory structure and installation of an aluminum waterfront business entrance sign. The subject property is located at 24621 South Clark Lake Road, PID 281-30606. Owner, you're gonna have to help me with this one, Benjamin Vanden Wijnlenberg. It's Dutch, right? Yeah. Applicant Electro Sites Design. Is the owner applicant present? Please come to the desk. Either of you can. You'd like to state your name for the record?
Yep, Ben Van Wijnmellenberg.
Billy Johnson, Electro Side.
Welcome.
Got that, Maggie?
Yes, I do.
Bethany, your staff report.
The applicant is requesting to replace and expand upon an existing overhead gateway with the addition of an attached illuminated sign at the entrance of Nature Link Resort. The subject property is located at 24621 South Clark Lake Road. in a zoned commercial waterfront. This gateway structure would meet all setbacks, including the required commercial waterfront side yard setback of 30 feet and a height limit of 25 feet. Any general public use structure in the waterfront commercial district requires planning commission approval.
If anyone would like to make public comment regarding this project, please step towards the podium and state your name and address. All right, hearing none, I'll close public comments. We are out there. Do we have any questions? I guess I'll start with Dave. Did you have any questions?
No, just as long as the road width is maintained, which I believe it will be. That was the main concern I had.
When do you anticipate the construction start date?
Spring.
Spring. So this upcoming spring.
Yep.
Okay. Any questions from either of the parties on my left or right?
No, my question was answered while we were on site, that the letters are the only things that will be lit on that.
Is that going to require a conditional use permit or variance? Because the ordinance looks like the only thing that I can see that's questioned is that illuminated signs in this district are prohibited. So
Is an interim use permit request that would
Okay.
end the cessation of business for that purpose.
okay.
I'm not sure if there's anything in the past regarding the lumens, because that's come up in the past where it's limited by the amount of illumination that it can show out. Can you go into detail about exactly what it would look like? Is it going to be a blaring white sign?
Yeah, so.
So you
it's
just
gonna
kinda
be
go over
a backlit LED acrylic, so pretty standard. It's not like a floodlight or something like that. It's really just the letters that are illuminated. You can see in the middle picture there that Billy and his team put together. That's the rough placement. But if you've seen a backlit, acrylic LED sign before, it's really just the letter that's lit up at night. It's not kind of shining off of it.
There's also multiple ways you can light those letters. You can have them come outward or go inward and backlight the lighting from the other way. We can also meet any lumen requirements you'd like.
I did list as a condition that the illumination shall meet the requirements of section 24.8.3. So the illumination of the sign shall be designed, located, shielded, and directed in such a manner that the light source is fixed and not directly visible from and does not cast glare on any adjacent public right-of-way, motorist vision, or adjacent residential property.
Yeah, thank you, Bethany.
Dave? Right?
Yeah.
I would recommend approval of the interim use permit application 003-22 according to the staff report and guess that's it.
Findings of fact.
And findings of fact, I'm sorry. So what happens when you're on vacation, you forget.
A second. Do I have a second?
Yes, second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thanks
Good luck
for
with the
coming
project.
in.
Thanks, guys.
Good luck. That'll look nice. I might drive by there.
Go for it.
Second item is a preliminary plat application 005-22 to subdivide a 26.5 acre parcel into 6 single-family lots within the Shoreline Residential SR zoning district. The subject property is located off of Upper Roy Lake Road, PID 281000660 between Roy and Ray Lakes. Owner applicant Jethro Carpenter, TM Investments.
Mr. Chair, do we need to have a motion concerning the application 00422 that has been tabled?
Well, I didn't, do we need a motion for that, or do we just want to adjust the agenda when we started? Because that's what I had asked about, but I'm not sure.
Did they request that we table it?
Yes.
Yes.
So I feel like there should be a motion. That's my
Okay,
recommendation.
let's go back then. Hold on a second. Second item, let's jump back, is preliminary plat application 004-22 to subdivide a 10.9 acre parcel into single family lots within the shoreland residential zoning district. Subject property is located off of Lower Cullen, PID 280206003, owner applicant Sandy Smith, Next Shift Enterprises, and that is being tabled. So let's have a motion to table.
I move that, that we table the preliminary plat application 004-22 at the request of the client or the
Seconded,
petitioner.
seconded.
All those in favor?
Amen.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Third item is a preliminary plat application 005-22 to subdivide a 26.5 acre parcel into 6 single-family lots within the shoreline residential zone. Subject property is located on Upper Roy Lake Road, PID 281000660 between Roy and Ray Lakes. Owner applicant Jethro Carpenter, TM Investments. Jethro, do you want to come to the front? State your name for the record.
Jethro Carpenter. I'm 562 237th Avenue, St. Francis, Minnesota.
Thank you. Bethany, your staff report.
The applicant is requesting approval of a preliminary plat application for Roy's Landing. The proposed development consists of 6 single-family residential building sites. No new roads are being proposed at this time, and the development will be served by existing legal access from Roy Lane and Bass Lake Road. There is an easement for future connection between Roy Lane and Bass Lake Road, and an easement for an access path to facilitate an alternative riparian access for the future owners of lots 1 through 4 in Block 2. Each parcel will be served by private wells and on-site individual septic systems, and no construction is being proposed at the building sites at this time. Subject property is located at PID 281000660 and is 26.5 acres. It is zoned shoreland residential.
If you would like to make a public comment regarding the project, this is your opportunity to do so. Please step towards the podium, state your name and address, and you are given 5 minutes. I'm going to have the comments go first.
My name is Paul Rasmussen. I live at 25221 Bass Lake Road. Before I begin, I did ask that Mark Theloff be present via Zoom to be able to answer and address the questions specifically that he raised in his letter. You have a copy of that in your information. Interpretation of the ordinance gets a little complicated, obviously, if you're not experienced with it. But I thought it'd be helpful to have him available to answer questions that you have if you otherwise don't agree with his positions that in his letter that he provided to you. We haven't had a response with respect to that letter, so I don't know where you stand. It's a little, so I throw that out there. If he is not on Zoom yet, I think he will be shortly. I've emphasized many times over the last year that all we are asking is that this development comply with the ordinances. Obviously, we certainly realize that someone has the ability to develop their land, but they only can develop it consistent with the ordinances. I wrote you a letter, it's in your packet. I'm not going to go over each one of the items in there tonight, but I do want to emphasize that if you disagree with some of the things in my letter, I hope that we have the opportunity to talk about them tonight, because the points I raised, I think, are important, and I don't want them to be ignored. I also don't want to just stand here and read you a letter. So if you have something that you disagree with in my letter, specifically, I refer to the 5 elements that of noncompliance of Mark Thieleff identified. If you disagree with those, I hope we have an opportunity to discuss why it is that you disagree, so that I can learn and that I can understand. Is he on Zoom? Great. My letter also identifies 3 errors in the findings of fact that I think need to be addressed. 2 of them correspond to the items that Mark Thieleff identifies also, but one also identifies, just acknowledges the fact that, and I think it's item number 4, refers to the fact that the entire plat is designed and compliant with the natural environment lake standards, but the plat itself refers to the general development standards. You can just see it in the legend of the map plat itself. And for example, the lot in the block 1, lot 2 has a 75-foot setback, which is general development, not natural environment. So there's a conflict that needs to be clarified with respect to the statements of fact.
I can clarify that. for you.
In my letter as well, I talk about several practical matters regarding the use of the common access and the dock and conditions that I ask the city consider to put on those in order to mitigate the impact to the neighbors. I think they're just practical uses of the common access and the dock, such as the type of vehicle, the location of the dock and so forth, storage and so forth. While not directly a platting issue, I realize, but the proposed dock, 270-foot dock that is in the plat, probably violates the Crow Wing County Surface Use Ordinance. That is, a dock cannot encroach upon the riparian area of its neighbors. This likely does, and I think the developer should demonstrate that it does not, because it directly impacts the location of the easement. If the dock has to be moved to comply with the county ordinances, the common access easement will also have to move and have to change shape and size and so forth. And that is a platting issue. And that location of that easement and the size is really important to many aspects of this plat. Many of the conditions and criteria that are calculated within the plat are based on the size of that easement. So I think that that's a significant issue that needs to be addressed as well. In my letter, I talk about the need for a buffer zone and screening along the easement along Bass Lake Road and along the property as well. And I guess just to conclude, because I keep referring to my letter, I don't want to repeat myself too much, but I think when you look at this block 1, lot 2 especially, there's an awful lot going on in that corner with the easement, the house, the dock, the parking for 4 golf carts. I think we have to look at that very carefully. And because I think that the measurements are all so close within a few feet to comply with the ordinance. I think there's a lot going on there. And I just think it's too congested, that there's going to be a problem. So is Mark available to speak? Can you patch him in now? Because he was going to address those issues, specific instances where the plat does not meet the ordinance.
I am on.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Okay, Mark, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes. If you would like to state your name.
Yes, my name is Mark Thiroff. My address is 100 Washington Avenue South in Minneapolis. And I represent Trish Van Pilsum, who owns property adjacent to this project. I want to thank you for the opportunity to address you by Zoom tonight and for accommodating me in this way. It's greatly appreciated. I too have a letter in the packet. I'm sure you're aware, and I'll also do my best not to just repeat what's there. I know you've had a chance to read it. I just want to highlight a couple of things. First of all, as you know, this is a preliminary plat approval, and one of the things that the Planning Commission is tasked with is determining whether this preliminary plat meets the minimum design layout standards in section 20-444. If it doesn't meet those minimum design standards, the plat can't be approved. The preliminary plat is not acceptable if it doesn't meet those preliminary design standards. And we've identified numerous ways in which this particular proposed preliminary plat does not meet the minimum design standards. And the one that I want to stress probably the most in my couple of minutes tonight is this use of a driveway easement to provide access to Lot 1, Block 1 and Lot 1, Block 2. You'll know that your minimum design standards require that each lot in a plat have minimum frontage on a designated right-of-way. This is, of course, to ensure that lots front on streets and you don't have lots without legal street access. And designated right-of-way is defined in your ordinance. And it's defined to mean a parcel of property that's dedicated to the public. So as you know, streets and roads are dedicated on plats. They are not part of lots. They are strips of land that are dedicated to the public for use for particular purposes, whether that be streets or other purposes, could be stormwater drainage, other things like that. But it has to be dedicated land to provide the necessary frontage for these two parcels. And elsewhere, your ordinance says that dedicated streets have to be 66 feet wide. That right-of-way has a minimum width of 66 feet. This use here of this driveway easement to provide access to these two parcels is a very transparent attempt to make an end run around your street requirements. We had an earlier proposal for this same site that had appropriate dedicated streets that ended in a cul-de-sac. And here we've got a 33-foot strip. And significantly, that driveway easement, because it's not dedicated to the public, it's part of the lots, right? It's not separate from the lots, even though the declaration says that those two easements are going to be outlot or going to be owned by the association, and they could only be owned by association if they were outlots. Obviously, the association can't own part of a lot. So there's a big mess really with this access issue. And that by itself is a barrier to approving this preliminary plat. I'd also point out that your ordinance also prohibits half streets. A half street, of course, is a street half the width of what's required. That's in effect what's going on here. You've got a 33-foot proposed access route that is half of what's required, and half streets are prohibited. So because Lot 1, Block 1 and Lot 1, Block 2 don't meet the frontage on right-of-way requirement, those lots are deficient. They don't meet your standards and they can't be approved. I wanted to talk for a second about Lot 2, Block 1. That is the lot with the access easement to the dock, the golf cart parking and so forth, that one down on Roy Lake. That lot is too small. That lot has to be 80,000 square feet under the natural environment lake standards. And this particular lot, which shows on the preliminary plat in front of you at 81,000 something, it only meets that requirement by counting the area of the driveway easement. But no matter how you treat that access route, it can't be part of Lot 2. Either that road is dedicated to the public, in which case it's obviously not part of Lot 2, or it's going to be owned by the association, in which case it would have to be an outlot and therefore also not part of Lot 2. So that entire strip, starting up on top of the hill and going down, isn't properly part of this Lot 2, Block 1. And once you discount the square area of that strip of land, then Lot 2, Block 1 doesn't meet the 80,000 square foot requirement, is too small and can't be approved. The last one of the deficiencies that I wanted to call out to you this evening relates to Lot
Mark,
2.
hold on, we got like 30 more seconds here.
Okay, Lot 2, Block 2, Lot 2, Block 3 is too narrow. It has to be 100 feet wide, measured at the building setback. The building setback from a local road is 30 feet. If you go 30 feet off of the road, Lot 2, Block 3 is far narrower than 100 feet and therefore doesn't meet the minimum standards. The last thing I would say is I gave the letter to you. We had hoped in the staff report to see a response to some of these issues that we've raised, and said we just see findings that ignore these important issues. So I would really appreciate an opportunity if you get an explanation from either staff or the applicant as to why they think our analysis is wrong. I'd really appreciate an opportunity to briefly respond. Thanks.
All right. Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
I'm Trish Van Pilsen, 25221 Bass Lake Road. I would have liked to have heard the applicant first. That's generally how things go, but I don't know why that's not happening today. But I would say this, that Jethro, you bought this land knowing full well that it's a weird parcel. You guys saw it today, and I'm sure from the road you look up and it looks enormous and you think, wow, we ought to be able to get a lot of houses in there. But the truth is, it's a weird shape. It's like an upside down L. It's a weird location between these two lakes, one of which is a natural environment lake. It's surrounded by wetlands. And it's got these weird bluffs, not just in one place, but through it. So no one forced you to buy this land. He purchased it with the intent to build as many homes as possible to maximize his profit. I get it. He's an experienced developer though, and he is represented or has been represented by Kevin McCormick, who is also very experienced. So I have no doubt they know the ordinances. They know the technical aspects of the ordinances. And I think they understand the spirit and the purpose of the ordinances as well. So if Mr. Carpenter is having difficulty building all the homes he wants on this land, these problems really are his doing, and they can be fixed with a few clicks of the mouse. He is not entitled to build any more homes than the ordinance allows. I mean, why would he be? It's interesting that Crow Wing County is considering a moratorium on this type of development, prompted specifically by another of Jethro's developments. Now, this moratorium would halt this type of development for a year in the county. It illustrates that a lot of people recognize the harm caused by these developments along the wetlands. Now, although this moratorium doesn't apply because it is the county, I hope that it helps you focus on the importance of ensuring that Mr. Carpenter complies with all of your rules. And to be clear, I'm not asking that you halt this development. I'm not asking for a moratorium. What I do ask is that if you are not sure that each and every one of these lots meets Nisswa ordinance, and we don't think they do, you should take a pause. Take a pause, address the issues raised by Mark, and other speakers will raise issues tonight as well, and recommend the city council reject the plat until it conforms to all ordinances. You cannot legally recommend an approval of a plan that does not conform to ordinance. We hope you make a decision based on that ordinance, which was written to protect the lifeblood of this town, its lakes and its woods. And we hope you don't base your decision on Jethro's frustration, his eagerness to move on. This plat is a lot closer to being legal than his previous filings, but close is not good enough. Change or delete a couple of these parcels, and I think you're good to go. We also hope you don't base this decision on Jethro Carpenter's claim that he's given up enough, like this easement. If he asked for 100 homes, you wouldn't say, oh, okay, let's just give the poor guy 50. Quite simply, he still wants more homes than this land and these lakes can handle. We also hope you don't base your decision on a feeling that we, the neighbors, are belaboring this process, because the truth is, if Mr. Carpenter had come to you in the beginning with a plat that met Nisswa ordinance with, let's say, 4 lots, he'd be building right now. There would be profit to be made, maybe not as much, but profit nonetheless. We are sincerely grateful for your diligence and your patience. And I hope you don't think we're wasting time. When all is said and done, I am convinced that you will think this is time well spent. And when you do decide to recommend a legal plat to the city council, I hope you'll also recommend really careful oversight and enforcement of the ordinance and all of the conditions. Thank you very much.
Brad Birkland, 924 Bass Lake Road. I had questions rather that I was hoping that the council or city staff could answer in more of a back and forth manner. Is that appropriate, or should I just ask the questions and you could speak to them later?
Why don't we
How do
ask
you-
the questions and we can speak to them later?
Okay, so first, is there a development plan for this? Are you planning to sell the lots as they are, or have you haven't decided?
Haven't decided.
Okay, and if there were a development plan, would it be done in stages? So I'll just continue on with my questions. Two, does the 20-foot temporary construction easement, have we checked to make sure that doesn't cross into Bass Lake's shoreline impact zone? There are wetlands like right across the road where that's gonna be making the connection. And from my rough calculations, they came in at under 75 feet. So just wanted to make sure that that's an appropriate spot to do construction with equipment going up and down. And if maybe there would be issues of runoff going into the lake. This would all be before there's the stormwater management system. Two is I think Mark Theroff has already asked that question. Three, what would happen to this alternative access path if Bass Lake Road were to be connected through the easement to Roy Lane? Would that just go away? Because the golf cart path is going to be going through that easement. I'm assuming they're going to be making a left turn into the easement. Would the easement go away because the road would end up connecting directly to Bass Lake Road? Maybe all be paved. So would the future for that golf cart path end up being on Bass Lake Road? Does having an access easement prohibit docks on Bass Lake itself? I know that I'm just wondering whether or not it's allowing them to have additional access, or if it's an either or thing. Can docks be on both Bass Lake and Roy Lake, or does one exclude the use of the other? And if not, could we put a condition so that there won't? I mean, the reason we're doing this is so there aren't docks on Bass Lake, because it's a natural environment lake that the muck could end up turning the lake into algae. So then I think the last question is, the Public Works Committee did recommend like a different angle for the access easement. Is that going to be addressed? This to me looks like it's the same angle before the Widseth recommendation. So are they going to push? It seemed like the Public Works Committee voted in favor of requiring the access, the future use. Not, I'm missing. I didn't mean access I mean the future connection easement. Is that going to be required to be moved from what it is currently here? And if that were the case, then some of these lots would require variance. So I think that's a very important issue that needs to be decided before we can actually approve or recommend approval or disapproval. That's it. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Rob Habercorn, 1002 Bass Lake Road. Thank you for the opportunity to be here and make some comments. I just wrote some things down. I do want to express my support for all the attention so far from Rasmussen's and Berkland's and Weiss's and a lot of the neighbors regarding the details of this preliminary sketch. I think details matter. A good lesson was from the Clark Lake labeling of outlots and some of the misunderstandings that came from that. So getting it right at each phase. The city council at the February 15th meeting suggested planning and zoning and public works work out the road easement questions. And I can't find on the website that there was any more meetings or public meetings anyway from the Public Works Department. But so here we are today, and I don't know if anything's changed since the city council meeting, but the original goal was to facilitate a possible connection. And that was accomplished because it would connect to some road proposals on the development, which are now gone, they're driveways. So the road easement doesn't accomplish the goal of connecting the two roads. So I guess you'd have to look at, do you need the easement at all? Or do you need more of an easement? I don't know, but it really doesn't accomplish the goal. But just to change direction a little bit, since this is my only time, I get the opportunity to comment. I wanted to talk a little bit about the dock system. Again, keeping in mind that details matter. At the February 8th meeting, I think it was Mr. Young that asked what 8 docks means on the sketch. And the answer was that there would be, from the developer, was that there'd be 8 sections 4 feet wide, along with 12 mooring slips. The current sketch has 16 slips. For what I understand, serves 4 houses. Just thinking about the part of the dock system that that you need after you reach navigable waters, my estimate would require 75 10-foot dock sections. It should, you know, the sketch shows 20-foot wide mooring slips for 2 boats, and that's tight for 2 pontoons. If you want boat lifts in there, they should be 25 feet wide. The sketch shows boats, 35-foot boats. Well, the average 35-foot boat is 10 to 12 feet wide. It doesn't going to work no matter how you try that. A dock system of the same configuration with room for 8 boats, shorter than 30 feet long, would require about 30 dock sections. So there's people speaking different languages about how many sections, what does it mean? To put it in a little bit of perspective, Ernie's Restaurant on Gull has the cross section that goes across in front of the restaurant. That's very close to what the 16 boat slip dock would look like, only turned 90 degrees going straight out into the lake after you reach navigable waters. So it's a different picture than a small line on a sketch. So to you know, half of that is what would be 8 boat slips. And at some point in this process, whoever makes the determination on what can or what should be happening for the dock system should look at these details. It could be a real source for misunderstanding. Thanks for the chance to talk.
Good evening, Dave Anderson, 920 Bass Lake Road in Lakeshore. Thank you, Chairman and Commission members and Bethany for allowing me to speak tonight. I don't have a lot to say. I actually left my notes at home. You're lucky. But it's been quite a day anyway. But one of the other reasons I'm here is to also speak on behalf of an next door neighbor and also is the chairman of the Gull Chain of Lakes Association. Linda couldn't be here tonight. She wanted to be, but she had other commitments that she couldn't allow her to be here. But she did send a letter to you, which you've all seen in your packet from the Gull Chain of Lakes Association. And the point I want to make here isn't so much about this development specifically, but just for your own background to keep in mind what the county's doing really should affect all of us because we've got a lot of things going on. I'm not sure how many developments Mr. Carpenter has besides this one, but there's several. And they seem to all be in those questionable lots that nobody ever thought would be built upon. And our mistake, we should have bought them up years ago, but that's history now. But the point is that they're trying to see what's left of that dangerously, that area that's dangerous to protect or to implement building, and also to prevent boardwalks across a lot of vegetation. And so that's what they're focusing on. They want to do this moratorium. I think it's a good thing for the county to take that much time, a whole year of lost revenue for new construction, to understand what's going on and to move forward with that. And in light of that, and along with Linda's letter, Gulf Channel Lakes Association wants you to consider thinking about, if not working using that in this case, at least in your forward thinking, look at what ordinance changes you might need to make, and look and see what the data is that comes from the study that the Crow Wing County does, because I think it could be meaningful. And this also has the backing of 1,000 members of the Gulf Channel Lake Association, as well as over 1,000 members of the Whitefish Area Property Owners Association. The two biggest lake associations in the area are very much in favor of what the county's doing with the moratorium. And that's big. It really is. It's big news. You've seen it in the paper all over the place. Opinion stories from the editor of the paper, how important this is to preserving these areas that we count on. We don't want Nisswa to become another Royalton. We just drive through to get to decent lakes. So let's make sure we protect our lakes and take advantage of the things we can do. I agree that if your regulations, ordinances are met, there's no reason to deny building. I'm not against building. I built a house there, and I followed every single ordinance to the letter and got a permit and didn't ask for a variance. And that's the way it should be if you can. But abide by your rules. But if there's something more in the back of your mind that says, maybe this isn't quite right, think it through, talk it over, and make sure you feel like what you're doing is what really is right for the community and for the lakes. And so I'll leave it at that. But I thank you again for your time, and hope you think this over seriously. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Hearing none, I will close public comments. I think I would like to hear from David first, if you would. I'm not picking on you tonight. What's that? Yeah, and Kevin, if we want to introduce it, Kevin has just joined us, so if you want to state your name.
Yeah, yes, Kevin McCormick, Land Design Solutions. I apologize for being late, that little vehicle problem.
But if you could address specifically some of the areas that were brought up in the letter, could kind of respond to some of those questions.
Okay. I think one particular question was whether or not these lots meet the minimum requirements in terms of lot area. And that goes to whether or not the public easement that's depicted on the preliminary plat, if that area is included in the area of the lots. And it's my understanding that it does not. And can I confirm that with you, Mr. McCormick?
Yes, yes, it does not. The public easement proposed for this is not included, nor the private easement for the driveway portion. Those are excluded from the calculations, yes.
Okay. There was a question about the temporary construction easement of 20 feet width being within a shore impact zone. That is something that Mr. McCormick can speak to. We can confirm after this meeting. My comment to it would be that generally these areas are asked for in addition in case they're needed for the construction. There hasn't been a road design to the point where it's known if these temporary construction easement widths would be impacted or used. So they're a precaution at this stage, and the commission should understand at least that amount. In a lot of cases, those areas are used for placing erosion controls outside of the actual grading area. So that's just another point they make. And the,
Construction easements would be temporary easements. So
They'd be
they'd have a, they have
temporary.
expiration date on them.
that's correct.
Yeah.
They'd sunset after the construction.
Okay.
And again, the construction of this public roadway would be initiated by the city if it felt it was required or needed for public purpose. It's going to be dedicated to the public. That's one of our requests or recommendations, that be recorded as such for public access, utility and drainage purposes. And that includes the 66-foot wide portion along with the 33-foot wide portion that connects with Roy Lane. They would be allowed to construct a driveway access along the 33-foot width for serving no more than 2 lots. And that would be a privately maintained driveway access.
Jethro and Kevin, so we've gone through a whole wash of different changes. Do you want to just go over like a brief overview of kind of the vision now? Maybe you want to respond to some of the questions raised by the residents.
Yes, thank you very much. I think basically on this, we've worked pretty diligent with the city staff to get this correct, that would be usable for them down the road in the future. We've moved the road a couple of times now. We're kind of get it down to a grade where it's something that could be feasible down the road. As we talked about the lots, and as you've seen on the plat, you know, we're clearly defining the areas of 12% that we do meet the 80,000 square feet. The access road gives everybody the ability down the road to make a public roadway. We've also addressed all the concerns about the drainage area up north. We've set aside an easement area for that. And then of course the access easement at the recommendation of the city to come out to Roy Lane where we condensed them. So we've really brought this project down to 6 lots with just easement driveways and the ability for the city to move forward with their roadway as they requested. And that just meets all of the current requirements. And as far as a lot of the comments, we've read through them all and we understand them, but we've also been looking at this property for a considerable amount of time. Wetlands have been addressed, the bluffs, the steep slopes are addressed, and this project, at the end of the day, the construction activities are happening all away from that. And that's a really good thing. We've got no problem with that. We've came down several lot sizes. Like I say, to the end of the day, we're at 6 lots that has very minimal disturbance of this property, which is what the goal was in the first place. And I think we've addressed as many of these concerns with the public and through the city as possible. And if you have any specific questions that I can help answer, we'd love to talk about them. But this is a nice green space development. We're 26 acres with 6 homes, no public roadways, driveways, all of them meeting the 100-year storm event calculations. And as people purchase homes and constructions here, I don't know if Dave spoke to that, this does require a SWIP. So as people purchase these homes and they tailor the drainage systems to their own specific needs, they're going to receive a transfer of SWIP responsibility where they will then address individually these lots, how they're constructed, how the stormwater is managed, do they meet the impervious coverage, all the other specifications of the city. And the other requirements that were contained in Dave's letter, Witzeth's letter on the engineering side of it, those things will all be covered in the SWIP portion too. So With all of these concerns of the environment, we do understand them. We're identifying them. We're staying away from them. It's supplemented with the use of the SWIP permit process, where this is monitored throughout the construction, not just the driveway or anything else. Each home individually is responsible for that. So I think we've come a long ways, and this is a nice plan, and I think it protects and meets all of the requirements of the city.
Question for city staff, and this came up, I mean, I was pouring through this and I'm just trying to get a gauge on what we're supposed to be making a recommendation or asking questions about the docking specifically. And Bethany, you probably have experience with this because you're in the Crow Wing County before, and I have experience with Crow Wing County before. With relation to mooring slips, because that was my one question that I had, and the number of mooring slips. And I know Crow Wing County does it based on lake frontage. And that's what we had to calculate as far as our resort goes. It was based on how many mooring slips was based on how much frontage you had, and you couldn't go past it. Could you detail on what the Nisswa ordinance is in relation to number of mooring slips?
The number of mooring slips would be regulated if it was a resort, or if it was a PUD, or if there were multiple tiers on the property. These are residential lots, and so the mooring spaces would not be regulated in that way.
Okay. Does the city have the ability to regulate the number?
I did recommend, as far as condition for, if you do choose to recommend approval, that it be limited to 2 per residential lot. And then it would need to meet all surface ordinance requirements and any DNR requirements.
It was brought up that when you have 2 mooring slips, being that I'm in the docking business, when we have to bring in boats and lifts, some of them can be wildly different. Like you can have 113 inches, you can have 120 inches. Sometimes they balloon out to 160 inches if you have those permanents. Are we going to clarify on what that includes, lift size includes, just so we have an accurate number on how far this docking system would go out into the past the OHW?
Yes, the planning commission could include any condition on that they want to.
Okay.
And the council.
Gary?
I had a few questions. One was coming back to the mooring slips. I just 16 just seemed like somewhat excessive for 6 lots, but I assume that lots, the lots in block 1, those 2, that they have access, they have the same docking, same mooring facilities, right? Those 2 lots. Because there's a note here that talks about lots 1 through 4 of block 2. That's the easement to it, and I assume that the docks though are also for these 2 lots that are close to them. Is that correct?
No,
They are not.
These 2 will have their own individual lots.
So there'll be more docks, 2 more docks next to these.
That's correct. That's correct. They'll have full riparian rights.
Okay. I'm a little confused, Dave. I need some clarification on the Roy Lake Road connection. You know, we've got a 66-foot easement that's sweeping through this thing, and we talked about grades before, so I'm assuming that this alignment will allow for some, limited grading or grades on that road. But is that road going to be, if that's built by the city, would that come up as a full public road specification so far as construction goes, just up to this driveway easement, the shaded part? And then the rest of this is still a driveway easement for the lots up to the north?
The intent would be that if a full city road were constructed all the way to Roy Lane, then a full 66-foot right-of-way would be required at that decision point.
Would that cut across this adjoining property then, so it gets over towards Roy Lane?
It would abut the 33 feet on this plat.
Okay, so it'd be 33 on the other side of that from the adjoining owner. So Okay. I was just curious about that. I didn't know what the city's intention was there.
And again, this is a road that hasn't been determined to be necessary by the city at this point in time.
That was my next question.
So,
You know, I'm afraid of getting the cart before the horse here, so
it's providing the minimum requirements that are required for this plat. And at the same time, through this platting procedure with this property, reserving the right of way that would be necessary for the city.
at the time of platting approval, are we talking about dedicating this as public right of way on the plat? Or are we
Yes.
still talking about an easement?
No, it would be.
So this would get dedicated as public right of way all with the 33 plus this 66 that's coming through. Okay,
Well, I'd like to clarify that it's going to be recorded as an easement prior to the plat, but it's going to be specifically to the city. So it's not really a road dedication for public use at this time. So the general public isn't going to get to walk down this until the road is constructed. And that terminology will come from the city attorney's office on that.
okay, but that's entirely different than what I just asked. You know,
Well,
at the time of filing the final plat, this is not going to be dedicated as a public right of way is what
It will
you're
have,
saying.
the easement will show on the final plat, but it's not going to be dedicated for public use like you normally would see a roadway. As we do that, then anybody can come in and they can build roads, they can walk around. This will be private, an easement solely for the city of Nisswa for future construction of the roadway. If they choose to use it, they get it, and then it will be dedicated for public use.
That'll be shown on the final plat as a drainage and utility easement. then.
It'll actually be showed as an ingress and egress easement dedicated specially.
I don't think you can do that on a final plat.
Yes, you can. It has to be recorded first. So as this comes
As
about.
an existing easement. recorded.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
I'm
That's
with you.
exactly how we'll do
Okay,
it.
I'm with
And
you.
then it makes sure all the i's are dotted.
That's fine. I'm with
Yep,
you.
there we go. We made it.
Good thing, because we were talking two different,
Yeah,
we're talking apples and
that's why-
oranges here.
Thank you.
And if you would like me to clarify what I wrote in my comments.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes.
That the legal description for the permanent 66-foot wide proposed roadway easement for future construction to the city of Nisswa and associated temporary 20-foot wide adjoining construction easements, which would sunset upon completion of construction of a public roadway, shall be provided to the city of Nisswa for conveyance of public roadway drainage and utility purposes. And they should be recorded with Crow Wing County in the form and execution as recommended by the city attorney prior to the final plat approval.
Okay. I apologize for not reading every letter and every word and every letter or every report. So, you know, we get a package that's this thick that you spend 3-4 hours on getting ready for a meeting, and then the day or two before we get another 25 pages of letters and reports from, you know, comments from people. And so not everything gets. But I got one other question, and this comes back to this proposed ordinance, Crow Wing County
The moratorium.
moratorium. What's the prognosis on that?
The moratorium, on my understanding, is just for new boardwalks and attached dock systems in the SIZ, which is the Shoreland Impact Zone, that are proposed to run parallel with the OHW. It's ordinary high water mark. It is just basically the shoreline. So any projects where there is a boardwalk or a docking system that run parallel to the OHW, they have proposed this moratorium to stop development of those parcels at this point.
And that is not this particular.
That is
project.
not this situation, no.
So, is this something that they're doing soon or
They are voting on it on the 12th of April, according to what I read on their
very
website.
soon?
Very soon, and the proposal will,
But it really doesn't apply to this particular project.
It does not apply to this project, nor does it apply to anything outside of the regulatory authority of Crow Wing County.
Okay,
There was a letter included in the packet. I was looking for it and I could not find it. Was it from Danny from the DNR? Did she make a comment on this in a previous packet?
About the moratorium?
No, just about the boardwalk in general on what this project has. Did we have a comment from her? Or am I
We do
thinking of
not.
something else? Okay.
No.
Jumping back to the city recommendations for 2. So if we're looking at the docking system, it moves from 16 to 8. Is that what we're talking about?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that is the one I'm talking about. Okay. Kristen, did you have anything?
So I have a question for you. Are there any common areas on this, or is it all just easements and lots and blocks?
Easements, lots and blocks.
Okay. For staff, is Roy Lake Road, is that considered a collector road at all? Anybody know that?
I don't believe it fits the categories of a collector. It's at present a dead end road. So there's no lots there.
Just curious for the width of the road itself, if it can handle the extra traffic on it too. Because I know as we were driving along Bass Lake tonight, it was sketchy as cars were coming towards us. We were trying to cross each other. Mooring spots is another thing that I had an issue with too, but that's been spoken about quite a bit.
now if that connector road, let's assume it goes through, they build this, city does. What's the future of Bass Lake Road from that point to the existing one that we drove down today? Is that still gonna be there, or is that gonna be eliminated, or?
Well, there's been some discussion about that with the developer about possibly some scenarios of reserving it for trail purposes, other uses.
And I think in the platting process, as we see the preliminary plat, we're actually dedicating the 66 feet along Bass Lake Road now. So let's say the road changes, this still is dedicated to the public. This portion is dedicated to the public, so it can be vacated.
At some point, it can be vacated back to the adjoining
It
owners.
could be if you don't want it,
Yeah.
but yes, right there, it sets it up so you could use it for a walking trail, bike trail.
Yeah, my question has nothing to do with either here nor there on the plan, on this particular plan. It was curiosity as to
Yeah.
what would happen to that trail, if that's what you want to call it. Okay.
So Kristen found it for me. So this is from Danny, and she, on her last sentence in the last paragraph, she says, alternative access lots are not intended to provide access mooring for non-riparian property owners for the general public. But emphasis on general public. Did you have a response back to her from that, or? I guess I putting you on the spot, but I was just curious about this as I was reading through it and then looking at the riparian lot access.
As far as Danny's comment, I'm sorry, I'm not finding that. Thank you. Are you referring to the last sentence that says alternative access lots are not intended to provide access or mooring for non-riparian property
Yes.
owners or the general public? That is true. That would make it a controlled access, and controlled accesses are not allowed.
Okay.
Yeah. So this would only be access for property that already has riparian rights. This would just be an alternative access for them.
Okay.
Mhm.
All of these lots do have riparian rights, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, this is Mark Theroff. Could I just very briefly respond to the driveway issue?
Who is this?
Up on the Zoom.
It's Mark Theroff.
Typically, we're already past public comment, so I don't take comments after I've closed the public comments. But if you have questions, you can direct that to city staff.
I asked a question in the chat. I was hoping it would get addressed.
John, do you have any questions?
No, my concern's been addressed, so.
Okay.
You know, Dave Anderson, when he was talking, he made the comment that there's a lot of difficult land left. You know, there's a lot of precious property left. It's, you know, the development over the years has left us with, in many cases, what is left. You know, the property that was easy to develop and it was kind of cut and dried and it was easy to take care of is gone. And there's an awful lot of these parcels that we're dealing with today, and they're difficult for the developers, they're difficult for the city, they're difficult for everybody to deal with. And it's been getting that way for probably, well, forever, I guess, but this is one of those sites, and it's, you know, this property's been to the city a number of times through the last year, and we've been working on this thing. So, but there, you know, there's progress being made, and it's you know, but it's difficult. So I just put those comments in because nothing's very easy anymore. So.
One area that was not addressed was, and I think it was brought up with, specifically with the boardwalks, although this moratorium doesn't really apply in this sense, with bass. Now, in your plans, there's no plans to use that in any kind, so I think it's kind of a moot point. But going forward, is there any discussion about looking at, you know, the moratorium was for horizontal access. Are we looking at access for length? I mean, I brought it up before this even came up with you about if we're going to be looking at that. If any of these owners would want to put in something on Bass Lake, would that be possible?
As a condition, if we put the alternative access in lieu of access on Bass Lake, that would be the alternative. That would be the instead of. As far as terminating somebody's riparian rights, I don't know about the legalities of that as far as conditioning the termination of riparian rights.
Okay.
I would ask if we could, as an alternative of having 2 mooring slips, to have 3, and we'd put it right in the association documents or deed or whatever, that it could never, nothing could ever go on Bass Lake. The trouble is anytime you have riparian rights, people can put, there's an unlimited amount of boat slips that somebody can put in on a regular lot, right? So my ask is if we can go to 3, for a simple fact that a lot of people want a pontoon, a fishing boat, and maybe a personal watercraft or whatever it may be, right? And it's just, I feel that to give somebody with riparian rights an unlimited amount and then to condition 2, it's just kind of a hardship, right? So 3, I feel like, and we would, we honestly are in the same position. We want to preserve the lakes. That's what everybody wants, right? So if we could do 3, but that doesn't necessarily mean that people are going to have 3 mooring slips. They're going to just have the potential of it. A lot of people might only have 1 boat. It just depends on where they're at in their life. But I think 3 is a good compromise.
And I think we could accomplish that as putting it actually on a deed restriction rather than a covenants or a declaration that expire in 30 years. And then they have to re-up them. So we'll put it right on the deed, and that'd be something we could work out with the city attorney. But if they purchase lot 2, block 2, it's right there on their deed. You do not get access to the lake. And that kind of quelches that whole question of riparian rights being taken or not. We're taking them, we're telling you.
I got a question. Again, we're spending an awful lot of time on this dockage and the mooring slips, but it's important. You're showing all of the the mooring slips, on one side of the dock. It would, by shortening this dock up, getting it back off of the water, having them on both sides of the dock, right and left as you're going out, wouldn't we be able to, you'd be able to shorten that thing back by about 30, 40 feet or 20 feet? Or,
I completely agree that that's possible. We
You know,
have
it just-
some of, I'm sorry, I didn't.
Oh, no, that's okay. No.
Original measurements of the lake for water depth or whatever. So we would absolutely, we don't want to have a dock larger than what is required.
Yeah, no.
For the deal. So if we can configure it, there's also, as I understand, it's not in the city Nisswa repairing rates, but we definitely don't want to impede on anybody else, whether it's Rasmussen's or anybody else. So given that in mind, we would just make sure that we're not impeding on the neighbor, but.
Well, it's pretty shallow in here. You can see by the depths that are on the
Yeah.
drawing, 3 to 5 feet, 3 to 6 at
Falls
the
off
most.
faster. You only need 3 feet,
Yeah.
to start. So we would,
Yeah.
given, obviously try not to run it any longer than what is necessary.
Okay.
Bethany, under the staff recommendations, you talked about 2. Can you tell me what number are we looking at here?
With the staff recommendation of 2 mooring slips.
Yeah.
That would be number 3.
That's the last sentence there. I see that. Okay.
On the findings of fact, there would be another restriction added to the findings of fact, excluding any dockage on Bass Lake. And in lieu of with the allowance of 3
Yes, sir.
on Roy Lake.
That would be a condition.
That would be
not a
another
restriction.
condition. That'd be another, or a condition of it, right? Okay.
Did you want to propose that?
Yes. I would propose to recommend to the city council approval of preliminary plat application 005-22 to subdivide the 26.5 acre parcel into 6 single family lots. According to the staff report and the findings of fact by the city, and adding a condition that there will be no dockage allowed on Bass Lake or Ray Lake, I guess, whatever the 2 terms. And all of the dockage will be restricted to Roy Lake, and there'll be a maximum of 15 mooring slips.
Do I have a second? So we're going from, right now it's 2. So you're recommending that it's 3 times 4 is 12. So we're going with 12 instead of 8 with a condition that nothing is allowed on.
12 instead of 16. Nothing but
Well,
nothing on Bass Lake.
I'm sorry. So the staff recommendations is 8. Am I correct though?
Right. Right.
Okay, so we're going from 8 to 12.
The motion would be with 12, not 8.
Okay.
And that's, it's motions are motions, so.
Do you want to list that the deed will be restricted? Is that how you want it documented?
Yes, the deeds for the lots 1 through 4 of block 2 and lots. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, be all six lots would be restricted. It would have a deed restriction on them that does not allow any dockage on Bass or Ray Lake. So, sorry.
Okay, so I have all 11 conditions, altering number 3, and then I'm adding number 12 that restricts the deed to no access on
No-
Bass.
No Bass or
Okay,
Ray Lake, whatever it is.
and the findings of fact, if you didn't say that, I'm sorry.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Okay, do I have a second?
I have a question about.
Discussion.
11. Thank you.
Okay.
So for number 11, let's see, so page 16. Am I on the wrong page here? It's talking about the division of land will be served by existing streets, Roy Lane and Bass Lake Road. I believe it's not being proposed that Bass Lake Road be used. Is that my,
Which number are you at? 11?
yeah.
Yes,
Correct, so that should be stricken from that.
right.
Say that again.
Page 16, number 11. Division of land will be served by existing streets, parentheses, Roy Lane and Bass Lake Road. So Bass Lake Road is not proposed to be used as,
It is
No,
for
it
lot
is.
1, lot 2, though.
Yep.
Yeah, until, yeah,
Their driveway.
that can't,
connects on
yeah,
Bass.
that can't be said in that language, because until the city exercises its right to build Bass Lake, you know, the connection through there won't be any access, so. Number 11 should stay in. The division of land will be served by existing streets, Roy Lane and Bass Lake Road. Should there be a exception on that, or not an exception, but a condition that when the city exercises its right to build a road, Bass Lake connection, that at some point that existing access on Bass Lake is going to end for some of this. I think at the time of plating, I think number 11 should stay the way it's written in here. Because it's still, that's going to be true. Division of land will be served by the existing streets, both Roy Lane and Bass Lake Road, until
Right. I
at
think
some point in
it's-
the future when the city exercises another option.
It's fine. I think in my mind, it's fine the way it's written.
Yeah.
And even in the future, if the road is constructed, it's in all likelihood, lot 2, block 1 is still going to access. from-
Yeah. They're still both going to be used. So, yeah. Is that okay, Kristen? Are you
yeah,
satisfied with that?
yeah, I understand that. Then lot 1, block 1 currently is essentially landlocked until that 90-degree turn road. See what I mean? Because they don't have access to Bass Lake. They only have access to the proposed road.
With the easement coming through on the 33-foot portion, they're gonna have access to Roy Lane. It's either or, it's not both.
Yeah,
you know, every lot doesn't have to have access to both, so. Any, that's correct, isn't it?
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. Don't have anything else.
Any more discussion, Kristen?
I mean, it's not my choice to decide where to build a house, but it would seem that lot 2 could also, lot 2, block 1. The way that they have it could be built up there, but that is not at this point. So,
And when the permits come in for housing, that's
yeah,
a whole nother matter.
I just really don't want to see any of the other lots trying to go through some of the steeper areas because we did allow access to Bass Lake. Like lot 1, what was it, block 2? Technically, they could go to Bass Lake instead of using that easement. Same with 2, 3, and 4. I mean, it's,
Except that it's practically impossible though, you know. That's you're gonna
Pretty
be,
steep.
you can be violating slope ordinances and all kinds of things. You can't just be building driveways, you know, walled driveways through there, so.
Yeah, honestly, I couldn't see building a driveway, 12% pretty steep driveway. You know, 8% is even worse, so. That's not what's being proposed. I don't think it's practical.
but it would be allowed.
Yeah.
You could not
Well, we
place
can-
a road in a bluff or in the bluff impact zone.
But if it's
Uh-huh.
12% slope and not below.
Right.
Well, we can condition it. You know, lots 1, 2, 3, and 4 of block 2 will not have access to Bass Lake Road to the exist, well, I don't know, you'd have to. It gets kind of hairy here because, but you know, from on the slope side of the lots or, you know, something along that order.
Could not build a driveway to access Bass Lake Road for those lots.
Right, to the west. Westerly access, driveway access will not be allowed from those 4 lots to Bass Lake. You know, I don't know if it's necessary, but but to keep it,
If these lots are not built on for 10, 15
yeah, I
years,
know,
you
yeah, I know, that's all right, it's better to have good fences, make good neighbors, so. So I guess they would add another condition, number 13.
Lucky 13?
Number 13, lucky 13. We can go to 14 if you want, if you feel unlucky. But lots 1 through 4 of block 2 will not be allowed driveway access to the west of Bass Lake Road.
I will second.
You get all that, Maggie? Okay. All right, I have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Kristen?
Yeah, I said I, sorry.
I'll be a nay. Motion carries.
Do you want to comment on it?
Mine has more to do with mooring rights. But all right, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to the new business. Actually, let's give a couple of minutes to shuffle out here.
That's my menu here. It's over with now. That's my menu.
Okay, moving on to new business. The fee schedule discussion. And I thought that was, by the way, excellent. Very, very good.
That's I enjoyed reading.
Yes. So do you want to kind of go over what you looked at, what the research was?
You've all had a chance to read my memo. I won't reread it for you. I basically took 6 area municipalities in the county and whatnot. Just took a look at their fee schedule, compiled it all, and I did create a spreadsheet right here. You can kind of take a look at that. I just compared it, put it together for, analytical purposes so that we can take a look at our fee schedule, see if it's relevant, see if how we're doing things is meeting the needs of the city, is meeting the needs of property owners. My goal with this is to invite the conversation on whether or not we need to make any changes.
Now, on there, you recommended that we have a committee kind of look at this. What would that look like?
That I'm not quite sure of. That's what I was hoping to discuss this evening.
Okay.
In some of these cases, the fees that are charged for permits are, you're not really, in most cases, you're not comparing apples with apples.
Correct.
There's some, the cities, Baxter and Brainerd and Cross Lake, or, a lot of them, most of them have inspection personnel and fees. They've got costs that Nisswa doesn't have. And I was the one, I think I brought up these, that our fee basis for permits seems less than fair. Let's put it that way. I mean, somebody would come in and buy, getting a permit for $450 and build a dwelling that's 300,000, and then there were others coming in and buying this, the same permit fee, and they're building houses that are 900,000. They didn't say it on the permit application, but we know that they are just from where they're located. So, I mean, we're not going to be able to charge the same permit fees that cities that have more detailed follow-up, construction follow-up. So, but I think we've got to at least make it equitable. And I think that having an additional fee charge like you're showing on some of these, where per thousand or per $100,000 of value, I think makes a lot of sense. But it comes down to the person that's coming in, asking and applying for the permit, whether or not they're giving you the right construction cost,
Correct.
So,
and right now we have no way to verify that.
I know it's all word of mouth,
Yeah.
it's an honor system.
Yes.
So, but based on so many, dollars per square foot though, for construction cost is getting to be quite common. So, I mean, if you're basing your construction costs on your permit at $200 a foot or $250 a foot, it's easy enough to look at the plans and see what the permit fee should be, so.
Mhm. Yeah. There's a lot of cases for keeping it, on that scale, based on valuation. And there's a lot of good points to, having it based on square footage. So.
I don't know how the council feels about this, but.
Well, just as an example, I mean, on the latest permits list, it was a 4,000 square foot for $400,000. It seems like a good deal.
Very good deal.
I should buy that.
Yes. Yes. And I've seen permits, that are submitted that are valuation of $270,000, and they're built by very well-known construction companies in the area that generally don't.
Well, and
for
just
that
from where
price.
some of the, you know, where some of the buildings are being built, you know, that they're not entry level houses, you know, I mean, that's just the way it is. So it's, we've got to find a way to control that a little bit better, I think, than what we're doing. That's all. So
I would like to find a way to standardize administration of the fee schedule for sure.
this is a really nice chart though, that we put together. So
A lot of information, but it gives you a nice snapshot of where we sit in relation to other area.
this took more than 20 minutes, didn't it?
But besides this, having a committee, did you have any initial thoughts on what you think that would look like in practice? Like, I mean, we see the comparison. I mean, just in your opinion, what do you think?
You know, what I'm used to is the square footage. It's very standardized. It's very fair. It's across the board. You know, if you're, depending on your high end, you know, whatever you're putting in, or if you're not, it's the same permit price. I've had an experience with that. And so I come from a perspective where that's very easy to administer. I'm hesitant to personally, you know, say that we should go there. I have limited experience with the valuation. I see that there's benefits both. And I would probably lean on people's opinions who have dealt with this a little bit longer than I have just for the past couple of months.
Well, what do you, I mean, do you think this would be necessary to have a committee? Do you think that we, us four, could look at this and then come up with something at the next meeting with what this would look like in practice? I like the square footage idea. But again, you have to put that into practice. Is there an evaluation process over so many years? Because construction costs can fluctuate. I mean, and we might get into a 2008 situation where property values drastically decrease. You never know. So that's just an area of concern that I would have. So I'll take suggestions from other people.
I would think basing it on a, you know, a per square foot cost would be based on some, you know, Minnesota Home Builders Association or some number that's published every single, you know, every year it's updated. So you know what the average costs are for housing, and you could slide it someplace between, you know, what would be entry level affordable housing and luxury housing, and you could be somewhere, you know, 50-50, right? Maybe we don't have to be right on. So I mean, if the cost for building construction is $225 a foot, and our extra fees are based on using the number of 175 or 195, I think that'd be pretty fair, you know. So, you know, cut by about 10-15%. So.
At a minimum, if we stay with the valuation format, I would like to update those to reflect something more than, I think right now it's listed at $90 a square foot.
90?
90.
I'll take all you can build for that.
I know, I would like to know where to go for that.
Okay. So do we want to kind of research this on our own, or what? Bethany recommended a committee. Thoughts on a committee?
Yeah. It would be a committee of us though, correct?
Right. I don't think that we're gonna have many volunteers. So how about I mean, I would make a suggestion that we kind of look it over and come up with some ideas that we think would be best practices for administration, and then talk about it again at the next meeting.
I mean,
we have been discussing this a lot.
and this has been a fact for, you know, quite a while. So I mean, we don't have to solve it tonight or
No.
this month or this year, you know, but I think we should move towards something that's more equitable. That's all.
I've tried to provide you with enough information.
Yeah, and you
where
did.
could take a look at it at least.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, let's reevaluate it next month then.
Continued discussion.
Yes. Old business, none. Planning and zoning administrators report.
There were 4 permits that were approved in the last month. Those are included in the packet. And other news, we have opened up the permit counter here at City Hall for property owners to come in and discuss permit and get help with their applications.
No, housing construction is down nationally right now. It's dropping, you know, mortgage rates are rising, and construction costs have been, or construction permits across the country are dropping. So This is a very small number of permits compared to what we're used to. Usually there's 20, 25 of them. So it's and plus it's winter, I guess.
And you probably got your property evaluations from the county recently. Okay, any additional comments, questions?
Not this time.
No, okay. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned.